Welcome to Greenable Woodbridge. I am your host, Carolyn Ehrlich. Today we have a very important issue to talk about. It is food waste and food recovery, and we have two experts with us. We have Gary Sotomayor from Bayshore Recycling right here in Woodbridge. You are the Vice President of Operations.
Correct.
And we have Isaac Berg, who is the Vice President of the Composting Council. And I just can't wait to hear about what you both do. So let's start with Gary. Tell us a little bit about Bayshore.
Thank you. With Bayshore Recycling, and we're proud residents of Woodbridge Township in the Casby section. And we are family owned, Valerie and Frank Montecalvo, and we're one of the largest recycling companies in the Northeast and really the country. We operate 9 different recycling operations on our 60-acre parcel right near where the Parkway Bridge crosses the Raritan River, and we love the opportunity to always work with Woodbridge Township. So thank you very much for having us today.
We do have a great partnership.
We do.
Absolutely.
We do.
And Isaac, tell us about the Compost Council.
Sure. So we are a chapter of the National U.S. Composting Council, which is the largest organization of composters in the country. And so we focus on 3 prongs of advocacy, so trying to make better policy to allow composting to happen at all different levels here in New Jersey. Education, so teaching people how to compost and why they should compost and all the different benefits of using compost. And then research, so showing people how they can do it and all the different science and even educational programs, researching educational programs on how to divert food waste. And so we do a lot of different programs, all in service of diverting our organics from landfills and incinerators.
It's important, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it because composting is, I have to say, I have a huge learning curve there, and I'm sure a lot of our community do, because we don't see that many compostings in backyards. So I can't wait to hear more about it, but I'm going to turn to Gary for a minute, because last year you worked with the owner of Bayshore, Valerie Montecalvo, and you started a great process about talking to stakeholders and all of that to learn more about food waste and food recovery and what we can do about it. You want to share a little bit about that with us?
Thank you. So Valerie and Frank are, aside from our business operations, are very philanthropic, and they take the position you really have to be a good corporate citizen and you have to give back. And as part of that, sounds unbelievable, but we actually sit on the boards of directors or trustees of 18 nonprofit and government organizations.
And I know Valerie has you going to most of those meetings.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. It's such a
great opportunity.
It really is such a wonderful opportunity. But one of the organizations we're very involved with is the New Jersey Climate Change Alliance. And I actually have the honor of serving as the co-chair of that organization. And we do our work through work groups. And last year, Valerie and I were talking about, how can we try to make a significant contribution? And we thought this area of food recovery and food waste management would be a great area for us. So we convened a stakeholder process, and we were able to get 80 organizations to come together. And for over a 2-month period only, in 2 months, we had 6 sessions, and we kind of did a gap analysis of how can we become more sustainable in 5 different areas. So food donation, food waste management in schools, phenomenal amounts of food are never touched by the kids and go right to the waste. Small-scale composting, backyard composting, community gardens, small-scale windrow composting. The big facilities, how can we develop large government or commercial composting facilities? And finally, an area that doesn't get much attention historically is sustainable animal manure management. As being the Garden State, we have lots of manure, and it has negative impacts on water quality.
Yes, it does. So
they were our 5 focus areas, and after 2 months, we sat down and we wrote a food management plan for the entire state in 1 month. So
that
we
is
published
incredible.
the plan in August.
Especially when you have so many stakeholders involved. Sometimes when you have too many people, you don't get to the end.
Nobody cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
No,
So
but
I give you a lot of credit, and I know you were involved with that too.
Yeah, I was going to say a very helpful part of that process was some questionnaires that was done, and you know, since then we've really taken that opportunity to use this as a chance for some additional research, which I think Gary can talk a little bit more about, and as an opportunity to talk with a lot of the different stakeholders who need to understand what we need to do here in the state, from the legislature on to you know, our Department of Environmental Protection and our communities. So it's, I think it's a great addition to the work that we're doing and a number of other organizations are doing.
And what you're doing here today, bringing it to the local level, where
Absolutely.
we can reach out to all of our residents and be working together. And Gary and Valerie did ask us if we would be a pilot community, and we just jump on that, even if we don't know what we're jumping into. And so we're looking forward to that. But before we started to go on the air, we were talking about what you've been doing. Sometimes it's very frustrating. Community gardens, composting being a small facility or a big facility, because the regs are so tough that they almost get to the point where they make it impossible. And you are working, I'm sure you probably got a bump on the side of your head from hitting your head against the wall, but you're trying to get them to streamline that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, you know, I really got my start with the New Jersey Composting Council because, you know, I had seen in other states that they have these great diversion programs, and I thought, oh, I will start one here in New Jersey. But there just wasn't a lot of places to take it. And, you know, one of the reasons that I quickly learned was the permitting process is just so difficult. And there's a lot of good reasons for that based on past failures. But what that results in is that we're not doing the things that are environmentally sustainable. So one of the things we first started with the New Jersey Composting Council was petitioning the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, for exemptions for community gardens.
Beautiful.
So we want to see that if you have a community garden and you grow some vegetables and you take it home and then you bring it back to compost the peels, that you don't have to have a full, you know, permit like you're a landfill. And we think that's pretty reasonable. And so we're looking at, you know, a number of different small scale exemptions. If you're doing under a certain amount of, you know, food waste, you know, and this issue I should say is very specific to food waste. There are other, you know, yard waste and other types of things. But yeah, when it comes to food waste, it's very strict, and so we're trying to open that up a little in a responsible way. You know, whether there's, you know, exemptions, and then there are or exclusions and exemptions, which are very specific terminology. But we just want to see, and so the DEP's now been having stakeholder meetings. And you know, so we're glad to hear that they're starting to understand that things.
Right.
But you know, we do want to see them work with a little more urgency, and so people can really start doing the right thing here in New Jersey.
You're absolutely right. I remember back when I started getting involved with all this, I said to our recycling people down at Public Works, you know, why don't we let people bring their composting, their food waste here? And she said, I can't get a permit to do it. It's impossible. I said, that's crazy. We take everything else there, and we can't take our food waste. It's nuts.
Sure. I mean, I don't think anyone would think that, you know, a community garden should have the same restrictions as the town facility, which is a little bigger, versus some big facility, right? So I think that's what we're trying to do, is trying to figure out, can we have a tiered system that makes sense for each of the different types of, and you know, I'm hopeful we can really make that happen.
Right. At least they let people take their food waste and compost in their own backyard.
That is something you absolutely can do right now.
Can you talk about that for just a minute for those people who don't know how to do that or what to do?
Sure. You know, another organization that we have is called the New Jersey Organics Recycling Foundation, and through that we just do education and research. And so one of the things we offer is a 1-hour course for municipalities and other groups that will sort of teach you why composting is important, how to do it, and some alternatives for folks who can't maybe do it in their backyard. But the start is to find some technology that's going to work for you. Now, that technology could be a plastic bin, or some slates, wooden slates that you fashion into a box, or it could be something that's a little more robust, like they're called tumblers, and you can put those in a very small space. Some of them are insulated. They have different materials, so you figure out how much you.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a number
There's a science behind it.
Yeah, and then if I'm just going to go very quickly, you want to make sure you mix your carbons and your nitrogens, and make sure you keep it aerated. That's the biggest thing. You can do it in your backyard. If you don't do it 100% properly, it might smell a little bit, but there's some easy fixes to that. And once you get going, people really enjoy getting out there and doing it.
Well, guess what? You're coming back to do that hour course. That would be great if you would do that. That's terrific. And so going back to you, Gary, so the stakeholders, you all got together and you actually put together a plan.
We did.
What are some of the things in that plan? What are some of the steps?
Yeah, what we came up with in the aggregate were 70 specific recommendations, and that's kind of too many to get your arms around.
Right.
So we worked to kind of narrow an initial focus to 17 what we called opportunities for action. And they fall sort of along the lines of the 5 areas that I mentioned. So one of them that's cross-cutting is education. And just as Isaac was saying, and there are so many misconceptions, particularly with food donation.
Yes.
Folks like restaurants and supermarkets and other larger generators fear getting in trouble. If I donate my food, I'm going to get in trouble. And gosh, we have had a food donation Good Samaritan Act in place in New Jersey for 40 years.
Oh my God.
40
I did not
years.
know that.
And that's the issue. No one really knows about it because we really haven't educated properly. And it takes away that type of future liability for donating your food. The other huge one is date labels. So there's date labels, and some of them, like for something like milk, we all know when we put our nose in it, it smells that it's spoiled milk. But for canned goods, those date labels really aren't relevant. And people don't know that they're not relevant. And so they throw the food out and they buy more food. And these very small misconceptions that have become so great can really be addressed through education. So part of our ongoing work is we created an education committee to prepare the outreach materials to go out to everyone to try to get rid of these misconceptions. Other issues for the food donation community, it's astonishing. These food banks, pantries, soup kitchens, do amazing work, but they are so lacking in basic resources. Many of them have a truck, like one truck, and sometimes it's not even a refrigerated truck, so they can't take perishable stuff. And if we could, equipment, like some of the trucks don't have lift gates. So let's say it's downtown New Brunswick, and someone has a pallet of food that they can donate. You have volunteers in SUVs. They can't put a pallet in there. So it's basic stuff.
We had that happen here. So we had a very generous donor give us refrigerator and freezer for the food pantry, which was really great. And we got it, we installed it, and then like a month later the mayor stopped by and he said, "Why aren't you using this?" And they said, "Because there's no ramp. There's no way for us to get these pallets up." So now we're building a ramp. I don't know why they didn't say anything, but that's the kind of thing, first of all, the people who are involved with this are just, their heart is so good, they didn't want to ask us for anything more.
Dedicated.
They're very, very dedicated. They're the best people in the world. And thankfully we have a good program here in Woodbridge. people contribute an unbelievable tons and tons and tons of food. We have right now, February, we have a heart campaign, and businesses throughout the township are making food donations, or for Valentine's Day, giving a check of $214 or 214 pounds. But
Nice.
it's great. It's great, and
the other one just to mention quickly, because it's so important, but we have something going to fix it, is we've never had any central oversight of the whole food donation world. There's no single government agency, like there's involvement from the Department of Health on food safety, agriculture with our farms, but no one's sort of trying to coordinate and help this amazing community to be able to do even more. And Speaker Craig Coughlin,
he's
in
great.
the last legislative session,
This is his passionate issue.
this is his issue,
Yeah.
and he passed, he was able to get a bill through that the governor signed to create, for the first time ever in New Jersey history, an Office of Food Security Advocate. And this is going to be so important. So we want to be the first in line to meet with the new advocate when they're named, to explain all the work we did and try to be as helpful as we can, because to connect the dots through someone like this office and this director, we think is going to be enormously important to take all the good work that's been done and bring it together.
Right. And I love that it's an advocacy office.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
And then that's a very important point, because what we don't want to do is like our discussion about very stringent regulations. We don't want to regulate this community. We want to help this community in advocacy. And it's very, very exciting. We can't wait for that office to be stood up.
Yeah. So you and Valerie came in to visit us. That's how you ended up on the show. And you said to us, we want Woodbridge to be a pilot. So what are some of the things that you're thinking about asking us to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it sort of goes across all the different areas that we spoke about. So one is sort of inventorying, you know, you have a terrific food pantry, and you really touched upon it with the ramp. You know, what else do the food recovery faith-based organizations, the pantry, what else do we need? And can we figure out ways to help? Schools, very interesting. I did some waste audits, and you and I did a couple together, which were very interesting.
Went through the garbage.
And so much goes in the garbage. I mean, not even touched milk containers, orange juice, yogurt, cereal boxes, fruit of all kind, right in the garbage. And so schools, there's been a movement to create what are called share tables. You simply take that food, instead of it going in the garbage, you put it on a table, and the kids can eat it during the day. And then we want to explore how we can get programs to go to the next step, to be able to have kids bring it home, and then if there's still leftover food, to get it to the food recovery network. So logical, but it's not happening. And a lot of it is misconception on getting in trouble. You know, there are areas, community gardening. You know, can we do more in Woodbridge as a model town, as the most sustainable town in the state, which we know is documented, to expand, you know, community gardening in the state. And then maybe if we can work through the Composting Council and get reforms on the regulatory side, can we develop compost facilities that would be on a larger scale? So it's really the whole gamut of food recovery, food management in schools, and developing infrastructure really to be able to compost.
Yeah, I find the food recovery topic to be, to me, a little bit new.
Yes.
And to be very interesting, and I would love to see what we could do. I was just on the phone today with the lady who oversees all of the school food programs, and I mentioned to her about the share table, and she was fascinated with that concept. So, so, you know, we're talking about food waste, but why is this topic so important?
There's really, I would say, two fundamental reasons. One is missed opportunity on food recovery.
I like that.
It's missed opportunity on food recovery. And the statistics are absolutely staggering. 40% of all food that's produced goes to waste.
Oh my goodness.
40%. And then we look at a state like New Jersey. We're the second most affluent state in the United States in median family income. And the United States is the most affluent industrialized country in the world, on the planet. And yet, in New Jersey, 11% of our population is food insecure, and 15% of kids 18 years old and under. It's a disgrace.
It is.
While we're throwing out 40% of all the food produced. So that's missed opportunity is one problem. The second is environmental. Environmentally, food waste, and it's interesting, you know this, we've had
Yeah.
mandatory recycling for 35 years in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So an interesting question is, what's left in the garbage can? And we did an analysis of that, and round numbers, 25% of what's left in the garbage can is food.
Mm-hmm.
And when we throw that out and it gets collected by the truck and it goes to landfill, it gets buried. And when it gets buried, it decomposes. And when it decomposes, it creates the worst of all gases, methane gas.
Methane.
So the federal government, US EPA, has told us that 15% of all methane gas emissions in the country come from landfills. So this is why we need to care about it. We can do so much more to feed hungry people and address food insecurity, and we got to drive food waste and organics out of the landfills
Right.
into compost
Composting.
facilities.
Yeah, I'll just add that's the third largest source of methane in the U.S. So you start going down the list of ways you can solve our climate change issues. You don't get too far down before you start talking about how we manage our organics and specifically food waste.
Right. And I know one of the things you're interested in is the soil, so that our farmers can be using healthy soil, and even our gardeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, no matter where you are in the state, there is a reason to be concerned about how you are managing your waste and then how you are rehabilitating your soil. So whether you're in Newark and you have a community garden and you might be on blacktop and you need to bring in some soil,
Right.
that can be from composting, or whether you are on a farm and you are handling cow manure or horse manure, and that could potentially be running off into your streams and into your lakes, and we've had algae blooms. So you want to handle that and manage it in a proper way so that it doesn't run off. So one of the ways is properly composting it, and then you turn that into soil that you can actually use on your farm
Right.
to grow food. You can use it in transportation projects and green infrastructure projects where you're trying to manage your soil or your water and your runoff, because compost is very good at soaking up that water. So there's just a ton of reasons why managing your food waste, turning it into compost, using that compost is just so good for our communities.
It sounds like we have a huge problem, but we also have solutions,
Yes.
and the solutions themselves are beneficial.
Yes.
So it is something that we can all work on, and I'm a believer in, if everybody does their little thing, then that becomes one big thing. So what are some of the things that we can do as a community and our residents can do?
I think we've talked about some already.
Right.
Or if possible, to backyard compost.
Mm-hmm.
And then some folks can't do that if they're in high-rise apartments. But if you can, and it doesn't take much. Like at our house, we have a little thing called a frog.
Oh.
And it's adorable little thing, but
Uh-huh.
everything can go in there, and none of that's going in the garbage. So
That's great.
to focus on doing that. Like we talked about education, and education, as you know, comes at all levels.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just from the top down, it's really from all levels to get out and educate, participating in community gardens. And one that Woodbridge knows about more than any other town is Sustainable Jersey.
Right.
So getting involved in
Right.
Sustainable Jersey
Mhm.
and all the actions we
And get
have.
more actions
More
for
actions
it.
related
And
to
you're
food.
on a task force.
Yes. Yeah, and it was very
The
interesting.
WAVE task force.
I looked at the existing actions, and one is for community gardens, and another is for doing food composting systems, and another one is trying to bring and expand farm markets.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the statistics. 170 New Jersey towns are already approved for those actions.
That is great.
So like you said, starting town by town,
Town
like
by town.
Sustainable Jersey is. We're going to build it and try to get up to all the towns.
Right. And you know what? Those are some of the easier actions that you can
Yes.
get, and that number should be more like 400.
Yeah.
Because those, farmers market,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of organizing, but the farmers want to be here.
Yes. Yeah.
So great. Any other suggestions for us? We have a few more minutes. Last words, if you want to give it.
So, I mean, Gary talked a lot about this already on a sort of a larger scale level, but on an individual scale level, the first thing you can do is just be more intentional about, how you're purchasing your food, how you're storing your food, and that way you can reduce, the amount that you're wasting. So you only buy what you need, and you put it into, different dishes. So, this might seem weird from the composting council that we
Right.
tell you to reduce, but that's always the first step, because
Right.
there's always going to be some amount of waste. There's going to be something you forgot about. There's going to be the banana peel, there's always going to be something to compost. So
Right.
we're not too worried about that. So the first step is reduction. And then you can think about doing it in your backyard. Then you can think about, okay, can I help with my green team and my environmental commission start a program that's either educational or maybe a drop-off program, and then you move to community pickup and processing.
That's one of our long-term goals.
So
have
yeah,
that.
you want to sort of build the your program up as you go, and take the small steps and build on that. And of course, we're always happy to have people advocate for better policy with us.
Right.
But you can always take the individual steps, and that's a good place to start.
Absolutely. So this has been great. It's been very informative. You're both going to be back here. You're going to be back to educate us, and you're going to be back to help us with a school waste audit. You did it once, and we'll do it again and see if we've learned anything since the last time we've done it. So thank you very much for being here. And thank you, everybody, for watching Greenable Woodbridge and being part of the change and part of the excitement. Thank you.